Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. 5 topics, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, a guest, some singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
I'm well. I'm having my water, keeping it clean because I just had the best drink ever last night. We went out to a French restaurant and had this tequila, rose liqueur, and lime. I'm just going to say it, and was called a French mystery.
What is rose liqueur? Does it taste
I've
like
never
roses?
had it. It kind of does. It just sort of hits you in a way that makes you just feel lovely. It's not
Okay.
like I don't like an overpowering rose flavor in things. It doesn't do that. It just sort of elevates the whole drink. And you sip it and you feel very sophisticated. So tonight I'm drinking water. Anyway,
Okay.
what are you having? Your
That's fine.
usual?
Astute viewers of the program will recall that I did not have a Manhattan last week.
Yeah.
I had that rum drink. So yeah, I'm back to the Manhattan this week.
Okay.
I'm back to it. I'm going to try to take it slow because we are having the after hours tonight. So.
We are having the after hours tonight, everybody. So just to remind everyone, if you are, you need to subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, if you're new to us, we welcome. We love seeing you. We love having you. And then there's a join button that you can hit, and that allows you to join a membership. It's a nothing membership. It's $1.99, but it's puts you in the private group so that you can do the after hours with us. Where it's a little bit more loose, and maybe Greg will have a second Manhattan, and maybe I'll try to find a rose liqueur. And I don't know if that'll happen, but I think we did get some bourbon. So let's see if I make it. We'll see if I make it. But I want to get to our guest. Except I need you, Greg, to fill me in on some news. I guess I was writing all afternoon, and I and napping.
Okay.
And I missed things.
I know there's a lot of stuff happening. We'll get to it, but
you want to get to it throughout the show? Okay.
I think we'll get to it throughout the show. I mean, the main thing this week,
Okay.
I mean, the main thing is that on Monday, Tish James is going to start seizing Trump's assets. And as I posed, which assets of Trump's should she seize first? And I vote for Ron Johnson. What's your vote?
That's a good one. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's plenty of other assets of. Are they of Trump's or are they of Putin's? It's hard to tell.
I mean, it's a pyramid scheme, isn't it?
It's a pyramid scheme.
I don't know how this works.
I almost feel like Donald's on the bottom of the pyramid scheme, and who knows where he's going to get this money. But that sounds like our first topic.
It is our first topic, so let's go right to it. Let's go right to it. We have a great guest. We don't want to make our guest wait too long.
Let's not make him wait.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, talk to us about Monday and this money and his debt. And it's not something we haven't been covering, and that this man is broke. I think the first hashtag I ever did, not that it went anywhere, was TON, Trump owns nothing, back in 2017, 2016. So this man, he has, not only does he have no liquidity, he doesn't really have ownership of anything. He's leveraged to the hilt, but he will find this money. He'll find it.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, yes, we have to give you the flowers on this because you said, he doesn't own Trump Tower. And the sheet came back about the assets. That has a huge mortgage on it, like vastly big. And with the way that condo buildings work anyway, the individual owners own the condos. It's not a thing that is owned by whatever. That was always kind of suspect. But we've had a couple of weeks here now on the show, and in general, I think, where things have looked very, very dark.
Yeah.
Where things have looked scary, where things have looked hopeless, where, we've been kind of, like last week, I think was one of those weeks where it felt like we're in the nadir of all this stuff. So I feel like it's very important for all of our mental health, okay, to just savor the fact that this motherfucker is finally going to have a real, actual consequence for something bad that he did.
Yes.
He's actually going to pay. So, yes, it is true that he owes almost $500 million, which, as my boss says, that's real money. It's not nothing.
Real money.
$500 million is a lot of money when you're a broke ass like he is, okay? And whether he gets an infusion of capital so that he can keep his properties or not, it doesn't fucking matter, because he's still going to be $500 million lighter when this is all said and done.
Right. Or $500 million deeper under, because it's not going to be his. He's very comfortable being in debt and owing and just using other people's money constantly. I think by his own standard, we get to kick him out of NATO because of that. Because he doesn't pay his bills. But, he's just never paid anything. And although there's plenty of people coming out and saying, this is what will work with it, he needs the mythology. And I used to say he needs the mythology of the businessman and being a billionaire and all of that. I don't buy that his people are so stupid that they know he's in debt. They know he never paid his bills. They hear all of that. They're just not going to take it in. It doesn't matter. So the only thing that would happen is if it's like, and he took over the RNC, right? And he's going to use the coffers there to pay for whatever he wants.
What coffers? Nikki Haley has more money than the RNC.
This is interesting. Yeah.
Nikki Haley.
She gets to keep all that, right?
She has more money than, I don't know what she has to do with it.
I think she gets to keep it all.
Yeah. Well, she has to keep it in some kind of whatever account for her. I don't understand how. I've yet to find anybody that really understands how all this works. It's baffling to me. Now, the other thing that happened today, which kind of put a little bit of a damper on this, is that his Truth Social company, which Devin Nunes is involved with in some way. Devin Nunes, who left a very cushy job in Congress where he was presiding over the Intelligence Committee and therefore knew all the secrets of the universe, decided, fuck it, I'm going to go run Trump's social media operation. Yeah. Now this thing is apparently worth a lot of money because it's been joined with this other company, which people are reporting on this. I think it was Crew, CREW, reported on this. It's Digital World Acquisition, and the main investor in this is this guy named Jeffrey Y-ass. I think it's Yass.
I think it's Yass. I think
it's two S's. It's literally ass with a Y in front of it. That's his last name. Yeah. Why? I don't know. You're this rich. Change your name. So he's this big mega donor, but he also, according to Haaretz, also funds this group in Israel called the Kohelet, I might be saying it wrong, policy group, which is basically a Heritage Foundation-esque Leonard Leo-y think tank that's extremely right-wing, that boosts Bibi and all of the right-wing shit, and especially the thing that he tried to do with the judges to seize power.
Yeah.
So this guy, he just wants fucking fascism. Thanks, Y-ass.
Thanks, Y-ass. Well, not only that, but let's just lean into this a little bit. The guy that's going to save Trump's ass, whose name is Ass, the asshole, the ass Y, the Y asshole,
the Y asshole,
who's going to save Trump financially, is Bibi's guy.
What do you know? What do you know? Small world, isn't it? I mean,
it's so small.
Yeah. It's a small world. So and he can't access this money for 6 months, no matter what. I assume they're just going to
money, the Truth Social.
Yeah, money. I assume they'll just use that as collateral and maybe, but who knows? Maybe it won't go through. Maybe they'll be like,
Wall Street will not fund him.
No.
He cannot get American funds. I don't know who Y-ass is, but who knows where Y-ass gets his money into that group. This is the problem. We don't know where this money really truly is sourced from and who's on the other end of that leash. We don't know. We know it's not his. We know it's not Donald's, and we know it's not fellow Americans.
I don't know. I mean, Y-ass is an American, and he is
an American. I'm not saying he's not an American, but where did he get all this? Is it coming out of his own?
We don't know. This is what Crew is reporting. This is what Haaretz is reporting. I don't know, but he's the richest guy in Pennsylvania, so
Look, he'll find the money. He's got plenty of people want to keep buying that motherfucker one way or another. They just want to own him, own their piece of him, and whoever is the last in the door. Last. It's like corrupt film financing. Last money in, first money out. right?
It's like the producers in a way, though.
It
So
is.
many people owe money that he's never going to be able to pay it all out, and like the producers, Hitler is involved. It's
Hitler's
perfect.
involved.
Yeah, it's through the looking glass here.
Springtime. Yeah. I just, yeah, maybe that's what's happening. I feel a karaoke happening. I feel it maybe a movie trailer or a Broadway
Springtime for
show.
Hitler and Donald Trump. Okay, yeah, that's it. That's what's happening.
That's it.
Yeah.
All
How
right.
much more time do we have? This is
40
about 8 minutes.
seconds.
I have an internal clock now. I
You
almost don't need it.
do.
Let's just move
Okay.
on. Let's move on to the next topic.
Let's move on to the next topic. Oh, the
Yeah,
next topic.
yeah.
That
Donald
was
dabbled in theology, I think,
he
this week.
did.
So,
He decided to tell American Jews who he wanted to let everybody know who is a good Jew, how to be a good Jew by Donald Trump. I have an essay here. I took notes like you. It's his little paper. How to be a good Jew by Donald Trump. If you missed that, anybody, he came out and was lecturing. This was like the top of the week, right? It was like Tuesday. You and I were talking. I'm like, I think this is a big topic, and it's already washed away by now. But let's remind, because my husband is Jewish, and I had to let him know. I was like, honey, Donald is telling you how to be a good Jew. So let's go through the list.
okay.
Okay, this is from the guy. I just want to review the credentials of the professor.
Okay.
Donald, MAGA professor. So this is the guy that while he was in the White House and in the run up to the White House, could not stop broadcasting out the numbers 88, if you remember this,
Yep.
and 1488. Use that
Yep.
number a lot as well. Those are, for anybody who doesn't know, those are neo-Nazi symbols for 88 or HH Heil Hitler, right? So, this was called conspiratorial. Maybe he just has a fondness for those numbers that has nothing to do with anything. And so he uses them regularly, and Stephen Miller was putting them out regularly. Okay, all right. But apparently to be a good Jew, you need to be familiar with these numbers and use them randomly for anything that you're assigning a number to and putting out public statements. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Also, this is a man with a history that stretches way, way back of lecturing American Jews on loyalty, and pulling out the dual loyalty trope, right? Not, you need to be, he says to the American Jews, you've got to be, and this is from the professor, Israel's your country. Not really America, it's Israel. Got to be loyal there. So he's constantly, your country, your prime minister, your ambassador, even going to say, vote for a Democrat and you're being disloyal to your country, Israel. So the dual loyalty trope, the thing that he likes to trot about, that's being a good Jew. This is in the list. This is his little paper. And then he goes from that trope into the brutal negotiations trope. Remember that? Remember, he's like, you guys are brutal negotiators. This is what he says to American Jews. Brutal negotiators.
Brutal.
Right? You have to vote for him, even though you don't like him. This is what he said to the Republican Jewish conference. Even though you don't like him, because otherwise you're out of business in 15 minutes. You can't have that. Because you're brutal negotiators. Your business, all that you care about is your money. This is what he has to say to American Jews. And even on this golf course, I caught some film. I saw some film of him on the golf course. He'll point to the Jewish golfers and say, this is a quote, even these spoiled rich Jewish guys can't believe how good this is, how good this golf course is that I negotiated. Yeah. That's what we want to hear from our guy, from our professor. And in that campaign, right? Remember when he was at the RGC, he said to them also, you're not going to support me, where he was getting some pushback and criticism. You're not going to support me because I don't want your money.
I remember
So
that.
let's make sure that when he's taking this $500 million from whoever he's taking it from, right? Supposedly, any Jew, American Jew, if YS is, he doesn't want that money. And so therefore, YS can't be loyal to him. Doesn't want anything to do with him because it's all about money. That's his other trope. And then he dabbled, of course, in the campaign, because this is what, when you're lecturing American Jews on how to be a good Jew, you've got to trot out the Steve Bannon globalist. Right? Remember that? He had an ad going around featuring the prominent Jews, George Soros, Janet Yellen, Lloyd Blankfein, warning of globalists are going to come get you if you don't vote for me, MAGA. If you don't vote for me, these globalists are going to take over. And then we had Don Jr. trotting out some 4chan memes, right? With Hillary Clinton and the Star of David and
Yep, I remember
that. Watch out. This is How to Be a Good Jew by Donald Trump. I'm just reviewing How to Be a Good Jew by Donald Trump. Got to have a globalist George Soros, Star of David, Hillary Clinton, lizard people meme out of 4chan. And use that in your campaign.
Yeah.
Got to have that. Got it. And as we all know, the courting the alt-right, as they used to be called, from the Holocaust denier that he had come onto his transition team to advise him on who he was going to put on his post, all the way up to the more recent turn he took with Kanye West after Kanye's things, and Nick Fuentes hosting him at Mar-a-Lago. Very fine people on both sides of Charlottesville. That's How to Be a Good Jew. You remember that, the very fine people quote that he made at Charlottesville, the people with the tiki torches, are our professor here on How to Be a Good Jew, because there was that guy that was his chief of staff, the general, right? The retired General John Kelly. And as soon as Trump said that, he went, like, damn. He couldn't resist himself. He gave that little, we caught that on camera. He's like, I knew that was coming. Well, how did John Kelly know that was coming? How did John Kelly know that was coming? Because we've learned from John Kelly that according to him, that his boss, the professor that's telling us all how to be a good Jew, that professor, MAGA professor, MAGAland, Trump, right, loved Hitler. According to John Kelly, he thought Hitler did a lot of really good things. We just learned that this week. Remember that?
I think it's the only book he's ever read, the one by his nightside.
I mean, he would know about that, in terms of his feelings for Hitler, because he did have that book of speeches, of Hitler's speeches, and he will say when it comes up that, hey, your wife, the one that mysteriously fell down the stairs and somehow had her teacup still together with internal bleeding, and then you buried her on the whole one in your golf course. That first wife said under oath that you kept Hitler's speeches by your bedside. So that's bothered him, and he's tried to distance himself from that, because maybe that's not being a good Jew, to just have the one book that you actually read be Hitler's speeches, by saying and doing this denial of, like, well, it's not Mein Kampf. They keep saying I read no one said you read Mein Kampf. We said you read his speeches. The speeches where he talks about they're ruining the blood of our nation, the kinds of shit that this guy was saying about immigrants up at, just a couple weeks ago. Remember this? Remember when he did that quote? I wonder where he got that. Hitler did some good things, right? Like calling out the Jews for poisoning the blood.
Yep.
His favorite trope. But we're supposed to dismiss all of this because, as Donald likes to say, as the professor of being a good Jew likes to say, because this isn't a trope. But my son-in-law and my daughter are Jewish. I can't be anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd review some of that. Of course, it's not a comprehensive list.
No.
Of course it's not. But I haven't forgotten what we lived through with that guy. My husband certainly hasn't. My family certainly hasn't. And it's just unfortunate that all the folks that could be trumpeting this and reminding everybody who this man really is and what he traffics in as he seeks his second term.
Yep. Yep. Got to keep reminding everybody.
Got to keep reminding everybody.
Got to keep reminding everybody. Okay. That's good. Thank you for that lesson.
Sets me off. Sets me off.
You know, well, it should.
It's
you know, the thing about this guy, I just want to say real quick, he's done so many bad things.
Yeah.
I mean, so many bad things that you just lose track of them. It's flooding the zone with shit, with criminality and awfulness. And, you know, after a while, you just like things pop in my head. Like, remember when he denied health insurance coverage to like his nephew who was disabled? Anybody else, we would never forget about that. I've forgotten about that for years, literally, until just this moment.
Yeah.
And there's just so many things that are horrible that it almost becomes like, how can one person be this horrible? But here we are. It almost makes you say, you know, it almost makes you say.
You ever scroll through your phone and think, the fuck? Lauren Boebert giving Beetlejuice a happy ending. The fuck? Kate Middleton making like bad Scientology wife. The fuck? Carmi spending half the finale in The Walk-In. The fuck? Hi, I'm Nunzio Ciccarelli, president of the Bank at a Bada Bing. If you're sick of walking around saying the fuck all the time, have I got the solution for you. Take a Bada Bing cruise. Bada Bing offers the best of everything. Great food and wine, luxury cabins, hot broads, the works. Join me, Uncle Nuns, and my buddy Sammy the Bull, Cadillac Frank, Ice Pick Willie, and Donnie Two Scoops to make memories you'll cherish for a lifetime. What are you waiting for? Call 1-800-MOB-BOAT and book your voyage today. Turn the fuck, yeah! And now, back to the show.
The fuck? I don't even know what that is.
You know, he's our best sponsor. He is our
best sponsor. It's solid, but it must be said that we don't know where the money really comes from with him. I don't know.
No, we don't know.
Might be from dubious sources. Nunzio might be from dubious sources. And obviously we made that before the other bit of news about, you know, Kate Middleton, which we don't want to joke about at all anymore.
Yeah, we don't want to joke about it at all. But, you know, the sponsor came in last night. So,
yeah.
You know, who can keep up with this news cycle?
Onward and upward. It's time for our guest. Time for our guest. He is a screenwriter, a filmmaker, a podcast producer. His films include QAnon, The Search for Q, and Active Measures, which is about the Russia's attack on the 2016 election. His podcasts include American Psyop, and his latest about Iran-Contra, lawyers, guns, and money. Jack Bryan, how are you?
Jack Bryan!
Doing great. Hey, how you doing, everybody? Doing great.
It's so good to have you.
I've got my drink. I got a little whiskey.
What are you drinking? Tell us what you're drinking.
Little whiskey neat.
Okay. All right.
What kind of whiskey do you like?
Okay, well, I usually drink Johnny Walker Black, but I am out. So I had to go into the birthday stash for very fancy Johnny Walker Blue.
Oh, wow. That's fancy.
Yeah.
That's
Johnny
fancy.
Walker Blue LP. He's bringing out the big guns.
He's bringing out the blue for us.
Bringing out the blue for us.
Now it's special occasion.
We're honored. Yeah. We're honered.
It's a blue wave, is what it is. So, okay, we have lots of stuff we want to talk about. I don't want to forget to get into your stuff. So the podcast is excellent and about the Iran-Contra. So just tell everybody what it is and how it came about, because it's an interesting story. And you know, I thought the whole thing was really well made and fascinating. So I want to make sure we plug it properly and give it the kudos that it deserves.
Yeah, so that came about as I was making Active Measures. We interviewed this guy, John Mattis, who was a Bernie Sanders volunteer who had noticed a bunch of Russian disinformation coming onto sites that he was running and tried to get the word out there. And so after the interview, we were sitting around having lunch, and he said, well, you know, this wasn't the first time I was involved in a scandal. And, you know, I was listening to the story, but also I was eating lunch. We just done an hour-and-a-half interview. I was a little tired. And about, 2 minutes into a story, I was like, wait, stop. Can you start over again? So, were you the first person to investigate Iran-Contra in an official way? It's like, yeah. Like, oh, okay. Let's review. I need to hear this. And he was, when he was 30 years old, his first, he was a public defender, and his first client was a Miami Cuban who'd been arrested for having a machine gun. And he was like, don't worry, I can get out of this. I've been running guns into Nicaragua for the CIA. We're good. And so this lawyer starts investigating, finds out it's entirely true, and then reaches out to John Kerry's office. And this starts the Kerry investigation. And this lawyer ends up having to almost getting kidnapped by the CIA in Costa Rica and having to go to Colombia during the cartel wars and bring back a drug cartel boss's bodyguard to testify. And it ends up being a big sort of CIA cocaine, gun smuggling adventure. And so I was like, well, I have to do something with this. So that just came out.
Yeah,
it's really good. Yeah. And you always get really good people for the interviews. I mean, Mattis is great. Like, you just listen to him talk for hours, just aside from the excellent job you do and John Cryer does, who narrates it, the subjects that you get are always really excellent. So anybody watch it. If you haven't listened to this podcast, you should.
Yeah, it's great.
You should.
Thank you. Great.
Okay. So Active Measures was about the 2016 election. And I don't know if you were aware of this, but we're in an election year now. So what I'm wondering is that
something going on. Yeah,
it's a little weird. There's a lot of Russia in the news. I don't know. Of course, now he's just meeting with foreign nationals just at Mar-a-Lago without even, it's just Orban's just there. Like, nobody's even talking about it.
Hanging out.
Yeah, just whatever. It's cool. It's cool. Logan Act. What's that? That's an X-Men movie. Whatever. So have you noticed anything now that's going on that strikes you as similar to what was happening in 2016? Like, what are your thoughts about it? What should people be looking out for? Any kind of observations.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about earlier, because we talked earlier. Sorry, people listening in. There was a conversation.
We had a little bit of a pre-meeting. Yeah.
Sorry. But one of the things that I think is, as a society, but also just an interesting thing to think about, and a thing that I think is an effect that we need to be aware of that has had a big impact over the last 8 years, is just normalcy bias. That we don't think a thing can possibly happen because it's not part of our normal idea of things. And then once it does happen, we kind of absorb it as just normal. Roe v. Wade is sort of the most obvious example for this of me, where for years people were saying, oh, that will never go away. Like, that's never gonna, be a thing that ends. And then the minute it did, those people, generally speaking, some of us were really on edge, but a lot of people were just like, oh, well, that's just what happened. Oh, okay, and that's just becomes part of the normal thing. And I think that Trump has, tapped into that in such a way that we've seen him follow through on his sort of jokey threats. We know every chance he has, whenever there's leverage, he's happy to break the law and has for years. Yeah. And yet there is still this concept of, even if he wins, things will kind of be normal. And it's like, they won't be. And that new normal, you'll see a lot of people walking around thinking that this new normal is normal. And it's going to be really, it's a problem, because people adjust in ways where they can accept things that they never thought that they could accept going into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Frog in the pot and all of that.
I think part of the, pushing it, like the fact that he's just constantly doing bad things contributes to the normalcy thing, because it everything flies along so fast that how can it possibly be a big deal if the media's already forgotten about it after half a news cycle, no matter what.
And the one positive, I totally agree. I think that the one positive though there is that Trump no longer controls the news cycle. Like it used to be in 2016, when he wanted to change the conversation, he could just say something new that was crazy and everybody would run over here. He still drives the news cycle, but he's not controlling that. Like that's his legal cases, the lack of funds, things like that. Those are not narratives that he's implanting.
Right.
And so he is now part of the news cycle as opposed to driving it. So I think that some aspects of this have gotten a little bit better, even though I think a lot of the problems that we still have from 2016 are glaringly obvious to all of us.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we want you to stick around. We're going to talk. I want to talk about that in specifics, actually, in another segment of things that we can offer and guidance we can have, because you know, the three of us each had some kind of, you know, we took our skills, you know, we're all storytellers, and we dove in as storytellers and focused on Donald and his corruption. And we did the research, we did the work that we do as storytellers, as screenwriters, as filmmakers, as novelists. To, you know, it's a lot of work if you're going to put something in print or you're going to put, you know, something on film, to know that you've got your facts right. And we all worked independent of one another and met each other through the mediums of, like, through our work, because we were all finding the stuff, right? We were finding that this man was not only fully owned by the Kremlin, but also had been trafficking in organized crime, and benefiting off of organized crime. In his case, it's just a generational crime family, and seeped in it, of course, in New York City and in real estate, and which eventually got swept over by the Russian mob. We were the three people willing to say the name Semyon Mogilevich when nobody would actually ever talk about that, except for Glenn Thrush when he was doing the, you know, for Dianne Feinstein, he did a whole testimony, and yet we could not get anybody with a bigger platform, a cable news platform, a Washington Post platform, even though it was all in their archives, couldn't get them to say that name, couldn't get them to talk about that during that cycle. So I just wanted to revisit that time period for a little bit for this audience, because they gathered around us because of this, a lot of people, and then some new people coming. And I know you wanted to talk about some stuff that does reach back to that time, but here we have Donald, pulling Paul Manafort out of the, you know, in his ostrich jacket, out of the dusty closet of an active measure, and trying to get it going again, repeat. So remind us about that. Remind us about Orban. Remind us about Budapest, how that's connected to Mogilevich. Remind us about this sort of mastermind inside of all of that as a political strategist who worked for or was mentored by Roy Cohn. So going back all those years, we have this character inside all of that many people don't know that man's name and what kind of role he played. I know you wanted to talk about that tonight, so I just wanted to tee you up for that.
Yeah, so I think that absolutely, and going back in the early days, especially, it was very strange being involved in the Russia side of it. But it's been quite a trip. But yeah, so in terms of Manafort, I think that there's an important character that often doesn't get cited in this, Arthur Finkelstein, who kind of helps to explain the context that Manafort came into. So Finkelstein was sort of a very young, bright pollster, Republican pollster, really started out with Jesse Helms and was very, very successful, and basically worked himself where he's very reclusive. Like, I remember when I first started working on this in 2017, if you Googled his name, the only picture that would come up would be a picture of Bibi Netanyahu, which we'll get to why that is later.
We'll get to that.
And he was became a very big person in New York Republican circles. But his deal was that he would be your campaign's pollster. He wouldn't take any bigger job than that, but he got full say on everything the campaign did. So he was basically running campaigns from the pollster position. And he was one of the first really big guys that moved from American politics. And Roger Stone was also one of his guys in New York. A lot of the sort of Trump guys were in his orbit. But he moved basically overseas, and he did Bibi Netanyahu's 96 campaign, and then helped out with the one where he eventually won. And he was really tight with Orban very early on. He actually had a house in Budapest down the street from Orban's, or within a quarter mile. We ended up looking it up during active measures, did the math. It was right around the corner. And he appears to be the guy who brought Manafort into European politics, largely, obviously, Russian politics, or Ukrainian politics via Russia. And he is sort of a large character in a lot of the stuff. And that he was also tight with Manafort because of the Bob Dole election, that Manafort basically ran Dole's convention. And Finkelstein was high up in that. And so a lot of these characters where Americans are doing some sketchy politicking here and then realize if they do that overseas, they can make a whole bunch of money. Arthur Finkelstein kind of pioneered that. and he appears to remain sort of close to this network. He's also pushed a lot of low-key anti-Semitism. He was Jewish. He also pushed a lot of homophobia. He was gay, and he is generally considered to be the guy who in American politics turned liberal into a bad word. The idea of using the word liberal as a dig, and he sort of set the stage for a lot of this. And obviously, Manafort was very happy to do sketchy things and work for horrible people all over the world, though his best customers consistently were the Russians.
Yep.
He was called the Merchant of Venom, by the way, Finkelstein.
Yeah. Finkelstein, yeah. He was also very close with Ron Lauder. His business partner, Ron Lauder, who's the Lauder Cosmetics heir that did put a tremendous amount of money and resources, known Donald for years and years and years, and supported him in his first campaign. Then they sort of had a break. I don't know how legitimate, and a break from, but it looks like I think he's back in the fold again. I'm not sure. It's a tricky subject with Ron Lauder trying to track any of that down. And he was very much BB's guy as well, supported BB quite a lot. And then 2018 had a big break there. So, but just so everybody knows, because that name kind of floats up, you see it a lot in Donald's circles. Just know that the Ron Lauder connection with Donald is Finkelstein. He was in there as well, and Roy Cohn eventually. But he also had, is it Danube? What was that London? That was that joint company.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is coming back. I can't do a thing on that, but yes, absolutely.
Well, it was, I just want to remind everyone. So there's some characters from Trump world that I don't know that we know that they've gone away, but they certainly capitalized on all of that took advantage of the Hungarian connection. One was J.D. Gordon, and he was constantly going, he's like made 6 trips to Budapest, to this exact area that Finkelstein was at, and where Orban was, and no one knows, and Mogilevich, and no one knows, why were you going there so much? What was that about? So again, there's a weird thing happening here with this group of characters. And then we had, of course, the Hungarian Nazi party guy, Seb Gorka, who's still, floating around, always the least important of anything, not even last, but not always least is what I say about him. But this was also the sort of, we've got to protect the Hungarian blood. This was the eugenics component for Orban, that party, and those semantics. That was all, it seems that it was driven by Finkelstein as well. So this company that he formed with the CEO is that CEO, and they're the ones that funneled the WikiLeaks, that hired the hackers, it looks like, for Julian Assange, and got the hacked DNC material to WikiLeaks, came through that London-based company, according to Hungarian Free Press. We don't have any more on that from our Justice Department, because we're still trying to extradite this guy. And I don't think until that case is heard in court, we're going to find anything else about that. But just so everybody is clear, this Viktor Orban thing, this Hungary piece, this Donald gangster piece, this Hungary's known as, and Orban known as, just Putin's puppets. This is just Russian Kremlin, stuff, is connected to the heart of everything. It's connected to Manafort. It's connected to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. It's connected to mysterious money. It's connected to a lot of gangsters. And no one has really explored all that. So I was hoping you were going to tell us, maybe you're going to explore that a little bit, because I love
we can, sure. So I think Orban is a really actually great example of capture, right? So Orban in the 90s is a Democrat, is considered a pretty liberal dude. Now, I do not know what the turn was, but it was very sudden. The rumor is that Mogilevich specifically had video of him taking a bribe and did not want to give that up to Putin. And that was the year that Mogilevich spent in prison, was the year that he would not give up that tape. So I don't know that that's the case, but that's the thing you hear. Orban instantly becomes, after this meeting, becomes a hard writer becomes a Putinist, starts clawing back things like, rights for journalists and attacking journalists, and a lot of sort of the woke talk is there. But there's also another important element of what it means to become sort of a Putinist leader. So soon after this, they start developing a nuclear energy project within Hungary that Russia is financing. And so regardless, let's say Orban dies tomorrow, there will still be an ingrained Russian interest in the Hungarian energy market that is really hard to pull away. Putin's PhD thesis, which was stolen, but still was his thesis, was on the power that you get through oil and gas,
natural resources. Yeah,
natural resources. Thank you. But specifically focusing on energy. This is a huge component for how these things go, where you insert yourself in a way that is long term, that is hard to then get you out. So then the person you've inserted yourself with has a continued interest in defending that relationship and a continuedly disincentivized from ending it. And so when we look at things like Donald Trump being owed money, that is the kind of thing that they're looking for in terms of leverage. The one thing I think you can say that Trump and the Russians definitely have in common is that they're always looking for points of leverage, and don't even necessarily know what they're going to do with it in the immediate. I don't know that Donald Trump necessarily knew what he was going to do with half of those documents, but he knew it was a point of leverage.
Yeah, I think what the pattern seems to be, and it's just a mafia pattern. And for those of you maybe that were coming new and don't know who Mogilevich was, I realize we didn't explain that. He was in the 90s, he was sort of declared the head of the Russian mafia, at least a Soltneskaya Bratva, which was Moscow based. But he ended up with Louis Freeh and some former FBI directors being his attorneys. There's a lot of sketch around this guy. And in terms of what Jack has exposed, and Greg and I got into as well, is it very much looks like Donald Trump was owned and leveraged by him, and called him a Russian businessman, but it looks like the Russian mob just came in and took over Donald Trump back in the 90s and early 2000s. And that's what allowed Trump to go global, right? And all of a sudden he's putting towers up everywhere that we've got these strongholds. What it looks like and what the pattern looks like is when it comes to Russia, which is a mafia state, and Putin, who is a gangster, is they come in with leverage to blackmail you, get the grips on you. They've got you somehow. Somehow they've got you leveraged in some way that could even be, that terrifies people, to where you got to go along with them. But the goal is to get themselves into your business and to start separating whatever realm of money people have around them, to separate that money and resources from the people there, so that they then become, even if it's legitimate businesses, of the criminal organization that did the leveraging in the first place. So it's always, always, always about money. Always.
Yeah, and Mogilevich, I mean, his power comes because he is sort of the banker for everybody in the Russian mob. Like that, he's a central point. And actually, he first sort of pops on the scene in, I think, the late 80s, early 90s with YBN Magnets, which was just an entirely money laundering company based that got itself on the Canadian Stock Exchange. And now we're about to see another Donald Trump company on the American exchange. So, it's all cyclical.
It could be the simulation. It could just be the same grift going over and over again. It's not like these are inventive people. They're not, I wouldn't say that they're creative. They're very enterprising. But it's a shallow well there of like, let's just repeat the same scam over and over and over again.
I looked up Mogilevich because I was writing something. I needed to check something, and the Wikipedia page, it just says criminal. That's the description. It just made me laugh. Like, I don't know. It just seemed like there's no offense about, just criminal. That's what he is.
Criminal.
So, what he does.
Yeah, and he is. And there's all these other ties that if you go to, like, Lauder is obviously in the cosmetics industry, and whose father is the longtime lobbyist for the cosmetics industry is Kavanaugh's dad. Maybe there's nothing to do with it, but it's certainly worth mentioning. There's all these like things that happen that sort of converge.
It's
Jack,
a
I wanted to
rarefied air that really smells. It's got the worst stench.
yeah,
It's like the rarefied air of Satan's bowels.
that's why they
So
need the perfume.
it's a little. It's a oh to Satan, and so it's a
The scent of impropriety.
yeah. There we go. That's nice.
What I wanted to ask, Jack, why do you think he's bringing back Manafort now?
Well, my understanding is Manafort's actually really great at that the Russians didn't just use him by accident, that he was actually really effective in Ukraine, and that they trust him.
He killed a lot of
and that
people. I mean, he was
a lot of people. But also the thing that the reason I think that he was so effective is that he was, when you're doing politics in your own country, I would imagine I've only ever done anything in my own country, politics, but I think that there's a sentimentality where you get a notion, whereas he would just go to Ukraine, look at a poll and be like, who cares? This is what we do. We'll go crazy. And so I think that it brought out there's no, well, we can't do this, or this is too far, because it's not your own town.
Yeah.
And so really crazy, really aggressive stuff. I mean, there was one incident where he was pretty closely tied to an incident where Ukrainians were attacking Marines. And so there was this was Yanukovych time. This was way, and so there was, I think that his willingness to do whatever, and I think that is, I mean, that there's a sort of a talent in that. He's very good because he's willing to do whatever. But I think that there is an element of all of that. It's who is willing to continue criming, and that, who is going to be his VP pick. I don't think it's going to be a political choice. I think it's going to be a choice of who will let me and go along with the criming. They are so done with making political choices.
There's so many politicians who will let him do that.
Well, it's true. Yeah, he's got a lot to pick from in that. But I don't think they're making political choices. I don't think nobody is even saying like, hey, Donald Trump got X million fewer votes than Joe Biden last time. He has to start adding to his pool of voters, or he's not going to. No one's even considering that, because nothing that's coming from the Trump people even approaches a political strategy other than complaining about the border. It's self-enrichment, and it's basically threats. And so, I think it's that the reason that they're doing these things, I think one is he's capable, two is he's trusted by the Kremlin, but more importantly, like, he's just willing to go for the crime. Like, they wouldn't just throw somebody who's a complete nincompoop at it, right? It has to be somebody that's effective, but there's 1,000 people who are more effective than Manafort. He's just willing to do the thing. His effectiveness comes from willing to go to a place that other people wouldn't, I think.
Well, maybe that's a bonus in that, the thing he did in Ukraine, there was a term for it. Now I can't remember, but it had the word blood in it. Because for those of you who don't know, he got Yanukovych into power and through violence. I mean, there were these violent acts that were going on, and a lot of people died. And he did that in other brutal regimes around the world. That's what he can do. He can do the violent coup. He can.
Yeah.
So, and the fake election to make it look like it was an election. So that makes me nervous. Because
he definitely. The election the Yanukovych election he won was overturned because they admitted. Yanukovych very stupidly that they didn't win because they cheated. But in 2004, they were going through the process of like, hey, you guys rigged the election. And the only reason that the election was overturned was that Yanukovych on TV in like a negotiation was like, hey, you rigged some, we rigged some. And it's like, we just admitted it, dude. And so the Supreme Court overturned that there. But yeah, it's about, he has been caught rigging elections. Actually, I think he came at the end of that. He was part of that, the rigging campaign of that, because he came in before the decision on that, but before the vote itself. But they were definitely, in terms of continuing that campaign, he was there. And the next one he was on for.
And that's what his friend Konstantin Kilimnik, that's what he does for the, Russian intelligence is election fuckery. That's, per the Senate, the Volume 5 and all that kind of stuff.
And Kostya from the GRU he was affectionately known, that was his nickname, was Costia from the GRU. He was really tight with that. I mean, that's the thing. It wasn't just like, oh, he met him in 2016. Like they worked together going back to the 90s. I mean, there's that picture of, you know, Tad Devine, Manafort, and Constantine from like '99, where they were all on the same team.
Yeah.
And I think there's another one that ended. I mean, like one of the other ones that was like a Manafort type, I forget his name, but worked in one position in a think tank, and then Constantine replaced him in the same job. So these guys were all working together for a long, long time. And that overlap, like this wasn't like a new network that he was tapping into. These were all old friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope we have eyes on this guy. You know, there's more than one picture of him, like with Finkelstein. You know, we can't. There really is. There's not many pictures of him. I don't know. I hope that we're keeping track of him. Okay, so we should move to the next topic, which we.
Okay, you're staying with us, right?
You're good. Yeah,
I'm here.
We're good. All right. I'm gonna set now. I'm gonna set the timer. Thank you for all of that, Jack. It is so important to remind everybody, what who we're actually dealing with here and talking when people are talking about. And it's not enough to just go Manafort, and have a little outrage. It's really important to say, okay, let's just talk about what this actually means and who this person really is. So thank you for that. All right, 8 minutes are on the clock, Jack. This is all we've got. What's our topic? Right. I can't remember.
Let's go. Oh, Dark Brandon. It's the Dems swinging. We want to talk about the Dems swinging.
Yes, this is what we wanted to come back to, that you were diving into in terms of, you know, we had these hearings that Lev Parnas shows up, and then you have a couple other things going on. You've got the impeachment ridiculousness. And the Dems seem like they're really, you know, at least people are dropping names now, and they're like, willing to think, you know, that great guy, I don't remember where he's from, that young Dem congressman that was like, okay,
Moskowitz.
Yes, Moskowitz. I motion to impeach. You second it, Comer. And Comer's like, you know. So what are some things, since you really did with active measures, punch through and get people to sort of get how dangerous, what are the stakes we're talking about here when you have a compromised president who's compromised by not just Russian intelligence services, which is big and bad enough and horrible enough, but the world's greatest gangsters, right? And like the running the criminal underworld, the entire second economy, and God only knows where the money's coming from, which is, again, of course, tied to the hostile foreign intelligence services. So I really believe you were able to pierce through and get people to start talking about it in a more meaningful way. So what would you like to see? What would you like to hear? Is there any kind of ideas or any words or anything you can think that would be really helpful at this point in this stage in the game? If you could just get a hold of people and saying, this is how you need to message. This is what you need to say. This is how we go Dark Brandon in a way that's going to be effective.
Yeah. So I think that there's a few things for me. I mean, listen, there's a few things to think about. I think for me, the biggest thing is that we don't have to convince any Trump voter to change their mind about anything. I think a lot of people get into the headspace of like, well, how do we convince his people? His people aren't enough to win an election. They lost last time. They need to add voters to their pool. What Democrats need to do is they need to remind people why they voted the way they did in 2020. And also remind people in terms of the things that have happened since, i.e. January 6th and Dobbs. And so I think that hitting people that have already voted or telling people who've already voted, he is taking credit for ending Roe v. Wade, and he is going to end democracy. And I think that one important element of that, we know what ending Roe v. Wade looks like, but we don't really talk about what ending democracy looks like. And I think that becomes this sort of vague notion of couldn't really happen, whatever, but it means very practical things. And that's usually when I'm talking about it, when I try to talk about, like, yeah, you'll go and you can vote. There'll be voting. There'll be a day where you vote. They might even make it a holiday, but it won't mean anything. And also, just like, you want to start a business? Okay, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a roof. What that means, if you go to Eastern Europe, that's an expression everyone knows. It is somebody who is connected with the government, might be a politician, a big businessman, or a gangster, who's going to protect your company. And you're going to give them like 25% of everything you make. If you don't like paying taxes now, that's going to be a lot more because you also have to pay taxes. And then when troubles come, it might be coming from your roof. He might be shaking you down. So doing anything in a corrupted system sucks. It's worse than just a regular bureaucracy. And it's going to mean that the things that are normal now are just going to be harder to do. And it might mean that a bunch of people are going to get bags put over their heads in the middle of the night, because that happens too.
Yeah.
And it might mean that there's going to be a lot of lone wolf attacks that nobody can really connect to anything, but man, they seem to be hitting consistent people. And that will be a normal part of life if we don't actually stop this.
It
just will be part of life.
It's also going to mean you can't trust your drinking water. You can't trust your food. You can't.
Yes.
You don't know whether the road in front of your house is actually ever going to get the potholes ever going to get filled. It's corruption on a mass scale, and all of the resources are going to be siphoned off for individuals, just like in every other corrupt regime. And
the bad news is it gets worse because corruption leads to extremism. So one of the reasons that like extremism, one of the reasons it's very tough to do anything in Afghanistan, where they tend to side with the Taliban, is that those extremists aren't going to shake them down. They're not part of a corrupt bureaucratic structure. They might kill them, but they'll bring them the water. They'll bring the oil that their generator actually needs to rely on. Those just human being things that you need in order to live. The extremists are more likely to deliver that than a corrupt bureaucrat who might take some money off of you in an incredibly corrupt system. So it's not just that living under a dictatorship will be bad, it will be bad and it will engender a system that's worse.
Sounds great. I think we should vote. You convinced me. I'm
Sorry, I'm drinking. You get me drink a little whiskey. I'm going to get morose.
Okay.
No, I like this because we've talked about this a lot on the show about the fascism and the but that's a different angle on it that we haven't talked about before. So thank you for sharing it. We've talked more about the, what he's going to do to women and trans people and gay people and people that write bad things about him and stuff like that. But yeah, the day-to-day operations of the society are going to just get, they're going to get worse. People aren't going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to go to the opera house and watch a music concert without worrying about some terrorist attack, for example. That's what happens in corrupt, shitty countries.
You're not going to get pulled over without having to bribe a cop.
Oh, like that's for sure.
Bribing a cop is for me, that's a real access point. A lot of countries, it's expected you have to bribe a cop. If you even try to bribe any cop in America, you will get arrested so quickly. It's amazing. That you can get out of a ticket bribing a cop will be a thing that we have to get used to. That will be just a regular way it goes.
Oh, and if you don't pay the bribe, the punishment is there's extrajudicial shit going to happen to you. So you might find yourself in jail for 5 years because who cares about you? You're going to get thrown into the punitive part of a corrupt system, and everyone fears, oh, I don't want to go to jail in these countries. Well, you don't want to be one of those countries yourself, because just living your normal life, you might end up in jail and you'll have no protection.
That happened to Sebastian Janikowski, who was the kicker for the Raiders maybe 10, 15 years ago, is Polish. And he did get pulled over in the United States and did try to bribe a cop and did get arrested. And he was like, what? This is how it works. And, like he was shocked that he wasn't supposed to bribe the cop because he just didn't know. So
it's how you do it some places,
Yeah. It's just how the shit goes down.
Wait till you have to bribe the DMV to get your driver's license. Wait for people to have that experience.
Do we need driver's licenses? We could just bribe the cop, if we don't have one. I don't know.
If you don't have one, but to get the car to go to the thing, it'll be
a
mess.
It's actually the Russian military. Russian military, your commanding officers expects bribes, expects for your salary, which is why the Russian military has become a bastion of male prostitution.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say it's horrifying.
You're not supposed to talk about that. And so they were like, don't talk about that. But it's true.
True.
Yeah, that's called oh God, what is it called?
Hell? I don't
No,
know.
no, it's a
Yeah,
favor.
not-
It's in the mob. It's your tribute.
Oh,
You pay your tribute.
Oh, tribute.
Yes,
Yeah.
pay tribute.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
pay your
Yes.
tribute.
Or
Okay.
rum.
Everybody gets a taste.
Everybody gets a taste. All right.
That's how it
Let's
works.
end on a happy note here.
Okay. Did we do the 8 minutes? We got the 8 minutes?
We got the 8 minutes. Oh, we have
I
to
didn't
do
hear a
announcements.
beeping.
Wait a minute.
I didn't hear a beeping.
I know because I turned it off before. It beeped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
All right.
we do. This is our section where we make some announcements. But really, that's just our opportunity to plug you again, Jack. So we're going to plug you again. Where can I know everybody can find your podcast? Can you just say the name of your both of your podcasts again for everybody, so they can?
Well, they're basically season 1 and 2 of Lawyers, Guns, and Money. The first is American Psyop, which is the story of the Wes Clark Jr., the son of the general who got surrounded by a cult-driven, insane, and then the people that surrounded him end up being the early sort of QAnon influencers. And then Lawyers, Guns, and Money. They're both on the Lawyers, Guns, and Money link.
Okay.
And yeah, so those are the two ones. I'm got a couple docs I'm trying to get off the ground right now, and a couple of scripted things I'm trying to doing, and we'll see.
Good. All right. So that's where people can find you is on wherever you get your podcasts, right? Any platform. Wonderful. All right, Greg, do you have any announcements?
The big announcement is that, well, first of all, we had, viewers recall that Lisa Graves was our guest a couple weeks ago. LB, the week you were absent.
Yeah.
And I had her back on my podcast. So that's pretty interesting. She spilled a lot of tea about Kavanaugh and the judges.
She sure did.
Yeah, she did. So I don't know. She was there when all this stuff was happening and was sort of a Cassandra-like figure with regards to John Roberts. Like she saw him early on before he was even a judge and was like, oh, this fucking guy is going to kill us if he gets in. This guy's bad news. Because he presents as a normal guy and not a whack job, but he is in fact a whack job. So that's bad. He's a reactionary. He's Clarence Thomas, but with a smilier face and a slightly less corrupt wife, I suppose. So, that's how it goes.
And more money.
Yes. And we have after hours tonight. So stick around for that. We want to thank everybody, as usual, for watching. We want to thank everybody for participating in the chat, for joining and supporting what we do. And I think we're supposed to tell everybody, please, to hit the like button.
Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and join and become a member. All right. Last topic, guys.
All right. Last topic is, okay. So what?
Joe Biden.
What happened? This is True Player. This is for True Player because she asked that we talk about this. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to read from the AP story so that everybody, watching, in case we missed this week. This is from the AP. President Joe Biden signed an executive order Monday aimed at advancing the study of women's health by strengthening data collection and providing better opportunities for biomedical research while chiding Republicans for having, quote, no clue about the power of women, but saying they're, quote, about to find out come November's election. Women's health has long been underfunded and understudied. It wasn't until the 1990s that the federal government mandated women be included in federally funded medical research.
I know.
For most of medical history, scientific study was based almost entirely on men, which seems like, maybe the scientists should have figured this fucking shit out before the 1990s. Anyway, so this is a good thing. It's, it's going to help women and medicine. And this is something that Joe Biden is doing. And I think, Jack, to the point you were making before, and I've made and we've made on the show, the election is going to be about Dobbs and democracy. Those are the two things. And this is very much a Dobbs thing. This is Biden-Harris saying, we actually care about women's health. And the other team just wants women to suffer and die, basically. So pick, that's it. And that really is the choice. I'm not even being hyperbolic or anything.
No.
They literally want women to die. So,
yeah,
and kids with the guns. So, those are the choices.
It's still a death cult. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's making, to an extent, it's making. So from a Democratic perspective, the really thing that's very difficult about messaging is Republicans have to target one angry white dude, but we have to target guys in Silicon Valley, Detroit, Latinos in Texas. these guys, it's a much more diverse population of people that you're trying to target. And so your messaging has to be much more diverse. Usually you have to say, well, the thing that's going to work for this guy is not what works for this guy. Whereas Republicans, it's kind of, you can tailor it a little bit, but you don't really have to. What they've done with Dobbs and with trying to destroy democracy is they've given us two issues. I mean, would it be great to live in a world where this wasn't the case? Yes. But from a political standpoint, they've given us two issues where you can just run on this to everybody. Like everybody will care about at least one of those two issues enough to give a shit or to care, whatever. And so I think that okay, good, because we're good. So it's horrible that we're in this position where democracy and a woman's ability to just live a healthy life without the government shutting her down on that is at stake. Is terrible, but it does make messaging a lot easier.
Yeah.
On the other end of that.
They both begin with D. Democracy and Dobbs. Dobbs and democracy.
So what is your guys' opinion? I want to know from both of you. I was having a conversation earlier with Greg with a friend of how it seems like, you know, when it comes to that Dems, we love it when, and progressives, I was an independent for years and years and years. Now I have to, but people love it to see their guy, their woman, their party come out swinging and really fight, really land blows. And I feel like with the Democratic Party and candidates, especially in campaigns, there's a history of waiting a little too long before you come out swinging. And so I feel like, why don't we try being ahead of why don't we try going early, since going late doesn't work, right? I mean, in the last big example of this was when Obama was really almost lost to Mitt Romney. And if it wasn't for Biden's full of women, and then he made the Russia comment, and Obama knew full well Russia was still an adversary and fucking around with us, but he was able to capitalize that and kind of like out of his, remember that? Out of the thing, he like lost two debates, and then he finally was like, okay, boom, and he landed a punch. It's like, wow, that was a Hail Mary, and thank you, and I'm glad you're in. But it wasn't a, you know, it's too late. Can we be early? Should we start now? Should they start now landing big blows?
Yes, they should. I think that they should. And I think that Biden seems like he's interested in doing this. I do agree with you on the problem. I think that a lot of that has to do with donors, and has to do with why the donor is in the game. So if you are on the right and you are a right-wing donor, all you care about is return on investment. You want to see that if I spent $200,000 or $2 million on this campaign, it resulted in me getting $4 million in tax breaks. And I don't care how we do it. I don't care what we say. I don't care how we go about it. If you are a Democratic donor, you are probably like, I want to do this because I think it's good for the country and for other people, and I see it as a generous act. And everybody out there probably invests more money than they spend on charity. It doesn't make you a bad person. That's just sort of the inclination of, I would like to make money so I have more money in the future. I'm doing this over here to be nice. It's the divergent lines of thinking. And when you're doing something to be nice, what you don't want is to have it make you look bad to your friends. And so if you're involved in a project that's icky and mean and seems nasty and might embarrass you, you don't want to give money to that. And so I think that is a large part of the problem.
Okay, so I would like to let everybody know, and maybe you can get a voice in there. I'd like to let everybody know that you don't have to be icky to land a blow. And in fact, fighting with everything you've got, with the intellect, with the heart, but fighting and really making a strong case and fighting and going to battle and doing it and getting in there is actually something that Democrats like. No one's going to fault a donor for backing the guy who can knock out land some punches onto the orange buffoon. We like it. Do it. Go. Make it happen. Do it early. Keep it consistent. Keep going and fight for us. Fight for us. Fight for us. People want to feel like they're being fought for. Greg, you were saying something about like, we were talking about like even the pacifists are talking about getting guns because they're ready
People
for
are
battle.
mad. People are mad. They were mad 7 years ago at Trump. They're mad. Yeah.
But also, I think we should all expect Donald Trump to be the 2028 nominee.
That would be great. I hope it's from prison, or he could even be from a grave. I can't. I don't know what's wrong with Mother Nature.
A stroke.
Yeah, I mean, this guy.
I'm just going to say right now, if we're playing like the Deadpool game, I have him on my list. He's not going to be around. And also, AOC is going to beat him handily. As soon as she's 35, she's running, and she's going to win in a fucking landslide because everybody younger than 20 loves her. So
I think he could lose for 3 more cycles.
Yeah, no, that would be nice too.
Good.
I would like to see him just keep losing, just keep losing until that party's done forever.
Oh, the irony that his show was The Apprentice when really he's the biggest loser. It's just irony, right? It's just funny. It's misplaced title of crappy reality shows.
Wrong spot in the schedule.
It's certainly not The Voice.
But yeah.
Might be
but
Survivor.
I think
this election's a challenge.
The Traitors. I could do this all day long. The Real Housewives. I feel like that's
we're not seeing Melania around. Maybe it's The Bachelor.
Oh boy.
I don't know. Do I even know the titles of reality shows? I don't know.
I don't know. I think I'm tapped.
Yeah. I think Real World
Shark Tank out there.
Real. I don't know. I guess if
Jersey Shore.
We'll see you all on Paradise Island.
It's the Jersey Shore, because I do think that by next week, maybe Tish James will own Bedminster. Is this happening? Is she going to get this, Greg?
I think the first thing that she's taking, assuming that she could do this, is the properties in New York, in Westchester County, which is the 7 Sprint, whatever the hell it's called.
That weird mansion.
Described as his Bruce Wayne mansion, but I've never ever seen or heard of him actually being there. But I don't know what all's going on there. But we're taking that. Things in New York are going to get taken first, I think. I think that's the thinking. And as a resident of the great state of New York, I am happy to get this $500 million windfall. Yes, I say.
I know just how I want to use it. That's for sure.
Yeah, on ads for Biden with the glowy eyes being badass. So I think that's how we all want to use it. So again, we have after hours tonight for members only. Everybody asks always for the link. The link should just be on our YouTube page right now. So if you just go to our page, it should be there. It's now 9:16. I think we're going to start on time at 9:30 for the after hours. And Jack, thanks so much for coming on. This was, as always, very enlightening. I always enjoy talking to you. A different view than what I hear, and I learned a lot as always. And the way that we end this show generally is, LB, how do we end the show?
Well, we just say something positive.
Okay, which is,
but it's sort of desperate at the same time. We're gonna get through this.